Ronaldo Ancog claims the defendant didn't pay rent for 7 months. He's suing for $5,000. Defendant Tonya Balas claims the plaintiff let her pay rent whenever she had the money. She says she owes him nothing.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
It's case number 3 on the docket, Ancog versus Balas.
Thanks, Najee. The plaintiff, Mr. Ancog?
Correct.
You are suing the defendant, Ms. Balas, in the amount of $5,000 for unpaid rent and late fees. What's your story?
Your Honor, in 2012, my mother rented out a house.
Yes.
And we rented out to Ms. Balas based on the recommendation of the neighbor,
Yes.
who's the aunt.
Okay.
At that point, we set up a payment schedule.
Is there a signed lease?
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Okay. It's a 1-year lease, but thereafter shall be month to month.
That is correct,
Okay, so
Your
it's a
Honor.
month-to-month lease. Now what?
The payment schedule extended a little bit past the 1 year.
Yes.
And then after that, it was supposed to be paid on the first of the month.
Yes.
At that point, every payment thereafter was late.
She lived there for about 6 years.
Approximately 6 years,
Okay.
Your Honor.
And
That
the
is correct.
payments were late, but they were eventually made.
They were eventually made.
So what's the situation now?
Last year, my mother decided to sell the property. In April-May timeframe, I notified the tenant that we'd be selling the property.
How would you notify the tenant that you're selling?
First by text and also by letter.
Do we have a copy of that?
I do not have a copy of the letters.
Do you deny being told that they're selling the house?
He told me through a text, which I do have,
Oh, okay.
in June, and then sent me a letter.
Oh, okay. So you did receive notice. He says April, you say June. When did you move out of the place?
September 1st was the day I signed my new
Okay,
lease.
so it's between 60 and 90 days.
Correct.
Notice you had. Okay, so now what's the situation?
At that point, she was several months late on the rent and just completely stopped paying any rent.
When she moved out, how much rent did she owe?
7 months.
You're
It's
saying 7
$700.
months she lived there without paying the rent.
That is correct.
What is your story?
Okay, first of all, Your Honor, it was never a normal enter into a lease agreement, okay? I was in an abusive relationship and I was in a stuck situation where I was somewhere I needed to leave. His family had owned the property next to my aunt, who, by the way, is my only living relatives. I have no
Yes.
parents or siblings. And he was nice enough to let me move in, knowing he would not get any money until my student loans or my tax returns would come. Okay, so I actually have an email that I hadn't even paid him any money, and it was February at this point, even though I moved in November.
So when you got, for example, your tax return, then you paid
Yes.
what the rent was?
This is how it was always been. I was never
6
just
years.
simply not paying. This is how it was
Okay.
always from the very beginning when I moved in.
Yes.
That's why we never re-signed a lease, because we never really stuck to the lease in the first place.
You don't deny that you still owe 7 months.
Well, there's other stuff to be said.
Okay, let's hear it.
Throughout the years, which I have tons of proof right here,
Yes.
there was multiple times when my basement flooded with sewage water. I had to clean that up on my own. I lost tons of stuff. He never replaced it.
Yep.
There was home repairs that were constantly need. Again, I have emails proving from him asking about the home repairs.
Yes.
And I never incurred any cost onto him because I was so scared. He was doing this thing for me where I could pay him with my tax returns. And as a single mom with no parents and no help, this was
Sure.
a huge factor in my life. But I was, after 6 years, sick of giving him my tax returns, right? So I had sent him a message explaining that I was downgrading. I had tried to put myself through college, and I was just sick of owing him, so I wanted to let him know I was downgrading my life. I was buying a cheaper car, I was cutting off my cable, and that I would start paying him the minimum of the monthly what I was supposed to, if not more, so that we could get caught up. It wasn't but 2 weeks after he knows I just spent whatever savings I had to buy a cheap car to get financially better, that he sent that message telling me that he was selling the property, knowing I just spent my savings on a car so that I could try to downgrade my life to get caught up with him. Yes, originally in that first lease, he says that he will give me 60 days notice. I'm a single mother who had struggled with money the entire time I lived with him, and he gives me 60 days after I just told him I was buying a cheap car to get caught up with him. How was I supposed to do this?
So here's what I'm understanding from this. As I understand it, your mom owns the property?
That is correct, Your
Okay.
Honor.
So
Did.
legally, even though my heart goes out to you, legally, mom owns the property. She is allowed to sell her property. And with sufficient legal notice, this is sufficient legal notice, she has a right to sell. So what I have to figure out is you clearly owe for some of those 7 months. And clearly you did some property fixing, which is his responsibility, not yours. Some of the things is just you as a tenant. Tenant wants to buy something for the apartment, you're allowed to do that, but it's not, you made the decision to do that.
No, I never did anything like that. It was like waterproofing the basement because it was flooding.
That should be his.
Having my friends who were
Do
plumbers
you
come
have
over
the,
and snake.
do you have a list of the expenditures that you made to fix up the property so that I can then determine, is that something the landlord should pay or is that something the tenant should pay?
No, it was basically waterproofing the basement, snaking the basement.
Do you
when it-
still have her
no
security
sewage.
deposit?
Yes, sir.
How much is that?
$700.
That's $700, okay. And you agree that when she had the flood there, you just were nodding your head before that is something you should pay for?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Okay.
In fact, every time I was informed that there was a problem there, I said, let me call someone in to take care of that.
Were you reimbursed for the money put into that?
No.
Or did he pay to have it fixed?
He did the last time, but before that, I was so scared. I liked our arrangement that he helped me with money, and he
I
worked with me,
understand
that I
he
never
was being
wanted to
good to you.
burden him.
Was there a time that there was flooding, which would be his responsibility? Was there a time that he paid for it?
One time, yes. At the
And he
end.
gave you the money, or he just hired
He
the
just
people to do it?
took care of it. Yes, he called the plumbers himself.
Okay. So you have $700 security deposit. That would take care of one of the months she owes. There's another month, because neither of you are giving me the exact cost of what she did and what you did.
I lived there so long, and I never.
I understand.
And it had even gotten an email from him like less than a year saying, we have no desire to kick you out.
Being a single mother, tough job. And you're in a tough situation. But he's not guilty. His mom wanted to rent out the house. He's apparently been nice to you. You're not entitled to get fees for her paying late because technically you waived that right. Because for 6 years she was, you both agree, almost always late, and you permitted her to stay. So that is called waiving a right that you initially had. I'm not going to waive all the rent because you're entitled to it. She actually lived there. There were some expenses that you put in. So rather than giving you 7 months' rent, you've got the security deposit, which I'm going to put to some of the repairs, and one of the months' rent. She owes you 5 months' rent and 2 months.
Your Honor, if I could just add one thing.
Yes.
Post moving out inspection revealed there was a lot of debris and a lot of damage to the house to the tune of $1,400, and also an unpaid water bill that remains with the house for $250 there.
I also have an email to counteract that says that, you know that I just bought a car, how am I supposed to do anything? And that
Well,
if you just gave me a couple more months,
okay.
that I would fix up the house and I wouldn't owe you anything if you could just give me a few more months in the property so that I could get my tax returns, pay you the back rent, pay you and fix the house. I think it's the middle one. It says I would fix it up to almost close to as I moved.
Okay, the house is being sold. Nothing we can do about that. The water bill is something you would owe.
I needed
If
to be
you
able to
do-
move out.
He's not responsible for the water you use. That was the original agreement. So I find a judgment, 5 months' rent, which is $3,500, judgment for the plaintiff. Hey, YouTube, check out my new show, Judge Jerry. Now, for sneak preview and behind-the-scenes footage, subscribe to my channel now.